Very esteemed guest. What an honor it is for me. My dad, if he was still alive, he would be so proud. Like, you're interviewing a senator. He'd be so excited. You know, my dad, as you know, he absolutely loved Trump, and we'd sit for hours and watch the news and be, you know, just so either enraged or ecstatic about what was going on. So my dad left me a treasure, and I don't start any show without reading something he's underlined. And he underlined from the beginning to the end of this Bible. It's, you know, this Bible's probably well over 60 years old, leather bound, thank goodness. And he left me this treasure. So I opened it up today. I went to Psalm 7, and he has underlined this in verse 8. The Lord shall judge the people. Judge me, O Lord, according to my righteousness and according to my integrity that is in me. I don't know how many people feel confident enough to say, Lord, judge me according to my integrity. Because God is a righteous judge, and he's watching what's going on with the United States and with Canada. Before we get to our guest, let me just show you a clip of some of his work.
If you were serious about securing the border, you could have done it. By the way, if you were serious about having a closed border, a secure border, you would have let it remain secure. You would have left those policies that worked, that secured the border, that would have allowed us to establish a functioning legal immigration system. But you blew it all up, and that's the result. That's the result. That's the catastrophe. And you've been denying before this committee repeatedly that this isn't even it's not even a problem, Senator. It's a challenge. This is a catastrophe, and I cannot believe you have no remorse.
Thank God that men with passion are fighting for us. Senator Ron Johnson came to Washington in 2010 after a successful 30-plus year career in manufacturing. Senator Johnson served as chairman of the Senate's Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee from 2015 to 21, and he is now the ranking member for the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations. He also serves on the Budget and Finance Committees. In November of 2022, Senator Johnson was elected to his third term as U.S. Senator for Wisconsin. He resides in Oshkosh, is that like the shoes? Wisconsin, with his wife Jane. They have 3 children and 4 grandchildren. Senator Johnson, thank you so much for joining us today. We're just so honored to have you.
Well, Laura-Lynn, happy to be here.
So we're watching a lot of things go on down there. I just first want to say that I have seen yourself, Senator Cruz, down fighting for the freedom of Americans, the same way that we fought for the freedom of Canadians up here with the truckers convoy. But you were 2 senators that were willing to actually meet with people that were upset about freedoms being in jeopardy, and this crazy thing that happened where everybody was forced to kind of get shots, forced to do, you know, a whole bunch of really weird stuff when COVID hit. And I thank you for that.
Well, listen, I think the truckers in Canada and other Canadians, they inspired the rest of us. They stood their ground, and they peacefully protested. And then, of course, the Trudeau government treated them horribly. As you know, the members of the COVID cartel in America here treated doctors that had the courage and compassion to treat COVID patients, vilified them, destroyed their reputations, tried to get them decertified. So again, COVID revealed so much corruption, so much that is wrong. And unfortunately, it also revealed that too many of our fellow citizens were willing to acquiesce to the control, the problems, or the overreach of government globally. And it's what Franklin warned us about, that, you know, those who want freedom and security at the same time, they probably get neither one.
You're absolutely.
You know, the quote there is, those people that are willing to give up freedom for a sense of security will have neither one.
100%. And so many people, even shockingly in the church, We just had Eric Metaxas on, and he was talking about, he's written this book, Letter to the American Church, and even churches like just didn't know which way was up, and they bowed themselves, they acquiesced. Did it shock you, Senator? You've grown up in the United States. You know the American people are a strong people, a people with pride in their country. But this little thing came along, a lot of lies were told, and fear was put on the people, and they just fell in so many ways.
Well, we've seen them also acquiesce to climate change alarmism as well. One speech that Bobby Kennedy pointed out when it comes to the military-industrial complex, Eisenhower's farewell address. Now, I went to take a look at that. It's only 15 minutes long. I'd recommend it to all your audience, but he actually warned us about 4 things. The last thing I'll address, didn't spend much time in it, but he said we can't allow global society to descend into a state of dreadful fear and hate. And of course, that's what we've allowed. We've allowed the military-industrial complex. We've allowed our federal health agencies. We've allowed the EPA. Certainly Democrats, I would say Republicans aren't immune to this, but we create all these boogeymen. We create this fear of other countries, other cultures. And again, I'm not saying there aren't people to fear out there. I'm not saying there aren't evil leaders. But most people globally, they just want the same things we want. They want peace, they want security, they want a level of prosperity to be able to take care of themselves, and these are universal goals. But the powers to be, they'll push things like climate change, they'll push the pandemic, creating a level of fear so that they can gain greater control. Again, asking citizens to give up their freedom for a false sense of security, it doesn't work.
Wow, I mean, those are such true words. America has never really been in this place, I think, where what we're facing, you have an election coming up with Donald Trump. We're watching what they're doing to him, keeping him, in courtroom after courtroom, and all of these attacks that have come against him. And Biden, what has he done? You've been very upset about the border. And it's been 4 years, and the destruction of the country is so evident.
Well, one thing people really need to realize, the latest news stories, what's happening on college campuses. You need to look back in history. This didn't just happen. This didn't just start last week. Anti-Semitism on American campuses, radical leftism. This has literally been brewing for decades. There's a great book out right now, Big Intel by J. Michael Waller. He really goes back to the 1910s, 1950, the rise of the Bolsheviks, and how they had a game plan to infiltrate with their Marxist-Leninist views institutions worldwide for the sole purpose of destroying Western culture, for destroying a capitalist system. I mean, I have no idea what they want to build it up with. None of their prescriptions have ever worked, but this has been going on. It's been passed down from generation to generation. Most recently here in America, it starts in the 60s. As the radical leftists took over our university systems, people like Saul Alinsky writing things like Rules for Radicals, people like Bernardine Dohrn and Bill Ayers, mentoring people like Barack Obama, who then rose rapidly through the ranks and became president of the United States. And 5 days before he became president, he said, in 5 days, we will fundamentally transform America. He meant it, and he went about doing it. And we are seeing the net result of this fundamental transformation. We're seeing the result of the infiltration of every institution of America, and I would say many globally, of radical leftism. And so it's shocking, but it should come as no surprise that our universities, who've been poisoned by leftist ideology, are a hotbed. They're a willing crucible for these anti-Semitic views right now, for people protesting the butchers of Hamas. I mean, think of this. It is shocking, but again, it's not surprising when we realize the radical leftists have infiltrated all these institutions pervasively, and now the result is plain for everybody to see.
Right. What you're saying is that it's really, even though we're just seeing it manifest right now, this has been, I guess, a couple of decades of being built, starting with Barack Obama and Michelle Obama as well, being influencers on what went on in the universities. And so quietly, do you think that we weren't paying attention to them putting all of these people in place that have totally different values? Even in the children's schools, we're seeing this manifestation of transgenderism and all of this crazy talk, telling little kids that they can change their gender. And we were so shocked in 2015 when we started to see it in Canada. It actually caused the loss of my national broadcast job because I was speaking out against it. I thought everybody would join me, but it became such a hot topic that you got publicly slandered or put down. But this had been going for a while. It was like a lurking, mess underneath what we could see. We couldn't see that they were putting people in place to change the entire culture.
No, it's been going on for more than a century. And again, Lenin Marxists are smart. They realize if they would go public with their beliefs, they can't change society overtly. They have to do it covertly. And so they've infiltrated these institutions very quietly. They come up with the words, like equity sounds good. They know what they mean by it, just a basic total reordering of society. But they've done it stealthily in using language that the American people or people globally, they're not afraid of. They're not creating fear. They're just gaining more and more power, more and more control. And as you say, it all of a sudden bursts into the open and manifests itself. And we need to be aware of the fact that, again, this has been brewing for decades. This is their desired state. It's just not a one-off. And I think it's extremely important to point that out, which is why I'm doing so.
And I appreciate that. This must be a bit of a concern to you as loving America. When you were growing up, when did you first realize that, for many years it seems that you were in business, but when did you realize you were going to put your name forward and become a senator?
I never had any aspirations for public service or running for politics until the Tea Party movement. And I always followed politics. I was always interested just in international affairs as well. But it was really when I think Rick Santelli was the one that declared the Tea Party movement. And this is the first time we'd exceeded $1 trillion in terms of annual deficits. President Obama was denigrating doctors to sell his Obamacare, saying that they'll take out a set of tonsils or amputate a foot for a few extra bucks. Now, I found that particularly offensive because our first child was born with a very serious congenital heart defect. First day of life, somebody came in, a doctor, one of these people that, Obama was basically saying was greedy, money grubbing, came in at 1:30 in the morning, did a balloon septostomy through a catheterization of her heart, opened up a hole in her heart so she could oxygenate her blood. And then 7 months later, when her heart was the size of a small plum, actually 8 months later, in 7 hours of open heart surgery, they rebaffled the upper chamber of her heart. So I found President Obama denigrating doctors to pass his policy prescription, his takeover of American healthcare, so offensive, combined with the fact that we were mortgaging our children's future, which was, by the way, one of the things that Eisenhower warned us about in his farewell address. We should not be plundering our children's future. Another one of his warnings we've completely ignored.
Wow. So when you saw this beginning to happen, the way Obama, he came in, he tried to shame the Supreme Court. He changed a lot. It wasn't like they appreciated America. Were the alarm bells going off inside of you as you were embracing your new position?
Yes. That's, I literally campaigned. I didn't decide to run till April of our election year. So I ran a 5 or 6 month campaign, doing parades, shouting out, we are mortgaging our children's future. It's immoral. It has to stop. This is a fight for freedom. That was my rallying cry. That continues to be my rallying cry. This is all about freedom. Freedom is the essential ingredient. Certainly in America, I would say the same thing is true in Canada. It's allowed us to dream and aspire and build and create this marvel we call America, this marvel we call Western democracy. But the higher value is truth. And that's really what's been denigrated during and exposed, I would say, during the whole COVID pandemic is it's becoming more and more difficult to discern the truth, particularly when we have government officials purposefully lying to us, spreading misinformation, and calling the truth disinformation, misinformation, malinformation. So again, this is what has happened in these institutions infiltrated by radical leftists who, again, have no problem lying. That's how they got into their position. They did it through stealth, through not telling the public exactly what their goals are, what their true ideology is. They did it through stealth, and so they have no problem at this point in time lying through their teeth to accomplish their policy goals.
Wow. You know, Tucker Carlson just had someone on that was describing how our Judeo-Christian values, Christianity is actually it's so freeing that it can allow those who are evil to actually grow, because the very nature of Christianity is that you get to choose. And in so doing, it does allow that people that do not agree with our values, do not agree with the way we see the world, can also expand in evil. Do you think in a sense that's happened because the United States of America is known worldwide as being a country that embraces Christianity, and yet some are saying now we've reached a place of being post-Christianity because the evil has risen and it's so pervasive now?
Well, first of all, I think people have always understood the vulnerability of America, of an open society. You know, phrases like, we can't let our Constitution be a suicide pact. So that they've recognized that vulnerability, and it's really the vulnerability of good versus evil. When you are good, when you're looking for the good in people, you oftentimes overlook the evil, and you really don't understand how evil penetrates and how it can really take hold. Again, it does it through stealth. It generally doesn't come out and expose itself because it wants to be successful. And so, no, I think good people are vulnerable to evil people always. And that's why we need to be on the lookout. And one of the reasons I'm raising the alarm that, again, don't just look at these college campus protests. This anti-Semitism is a one-off. It's something that just sprang up out of nowhere. No, this has been brewing for decades, for probably more than a century. And let's face it, evil has been around since the beginning of creation.
Do you think it's a bit of an irony that these institutions that embraced some of the Antifa and Black Lives Matter protests of a couple of years ago are now kind of over their heads with this new protest of anti-Semitism, which America has typically seen as a very evil force in the world, and now it's on these campuses, and they're sort of reaping the wind. They've sown into this kind of chaos, and now they're getting it back on them.
Well, again, they're fertile grounds for this type of activity. Now they're talking about what these outside or professional agitators. They're going to blame them. That's what the news media is going to do. They're not going to blame the universities. They're not going to blame the students. Are going to blame professional agitators. Well, the fact of the matter is we've had professional agitators on our university system for decades. They're called the faculty. They're called the administrators, not of all universities, but of most. And so it shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody. Yes, it's shocking, but not surprising that this type of attitude, this anti-Semitism, this hate for America, this hate for the West, this hate for our culture, finds fertile ground in our university system. It's, again, these students, the ones that are participating, they're being encouraged by their faculty. Now, I realize the administrators are realizing that their funding is at risk, so they're going to have to start responding. But look at how long it's taken them to respond the way they should have, to respond effectively to these protests. And again, I still think they've got a great deal of sympathy for what these students, what these professional agitators are protesting. And that's a real problem. Again, the infiltration of the radical left into our colleges and universities, that was the masterstroke. But it's what has seeded all these other infiltrations. It's, when you're graduating not journalists, but advocates for the left, when you're graduating indoctrinators as opposed to teachers, when you're graduating lawyers that want to become activist judges, that's how you take over the culture. And that's what we're seeing to come to fruition right now. We're at a very dangerous point. I don't know how much further down the road to destruction we can go and be able to recover from it.
Wow, those are powerful words. And you know, I'm thinking about you. You have children, and you also have grandchildren, and this is the world that if they want to go and get an education, you have to be very careful where you're going to be sending your kids, or there needs to be a complete upheaval. Like, this needs to be actually come against and torn down, and maybe going against, taxing their endowments or suing them. I hear there's several young Jewish students that are now going to be taking to task some of these universities, and maybe it has to hit them where the money is.
Well, listen, I'm all for lifelong learning. But my own experience in college, I mean, first of all, I dropped out of high school, not really dropped out. I got early acceptance at the University of Minnesota, worked full time, took mostly night courses so I could work full time. I didn't leave college in debt. I actually left with $7,000 in the bank. So I take a completely different view of these universities. I heard today that it costs $68,000 per year tuition for Columbia University to get your child indoctrinated to this radicalism. $68,000. I mean, even if you're doing a good job, $68,000 is a lot of money. It's not a very efficient way to spend your money, particularly not when you have the internet. So there's so many ways to get educated, to be a lifelong learner. So, as we look at this today, we're telling our kids, don't send our grandkids to college unless there is some specific degree, like engineering, like medicine, where you really need that discipline right there. There's other ways. How about the school of hard knocks? How about learning business by actually participating in business? So again, I think higher education has been a ripoff. Again, I'm not totally dissing it, but in so many cases, it's been a complete ripoff. With the federal government take over our student loan program, which means we enticed children to incur $1.7 trillion of debt collectively. As a result, they don't feel like they can get married, raise a family, get out a mortgage because they're already so heavily in debt. Just like we're encouraging little children to question their gender identity. Again, this is an evil being perpetrated on our young people by the radical left. And we have to recognize it as for what it is. And unfortunately, so many people just aren't awakened to what is happening to us. What the radical left is imposing on us now that they have all these levers of power, now that they've infiltrated all these institutions.
I'm so happy to hear you saying that. It's echoing what other people are saying as well about these institutions, and what we traditionally always thought we had to do with the kids was get them prepared for university, and that has just become just a shamble, and it's actually stolen so many kids. Somebody that I know personally, Dr. Lance Wallnow, has said the same things, that he had regrets over having sent his children to university because they came back with some ideas that had to be undone. And so it's crazy. When you watch what has happened, I can see from the clip that we played, you're very passionate about the border. And I'm deeply grieved watching what's happening in the United States with this border. Has it gotten some control because of Texas taking a strong line against it? Is it doing any better, or is California basically now the funneling hole for everybody to come in still?
Well, DHS is not exactly transparent with their numbers. We do know that they hit their high in December, where we averaged more than 10,000 people per day entering this country illegally. One day they had over 14,000 people, again, completely out of control. So I guess anything better than that is improvement, but not much. So that's going to be their explanation that numbers are way down, from an unbelievable high. But no, this is obviously a clear and present danger. The reason I get so passionate about it, again, I try not to show such anger, but it's infuriating having somebody like Mayorkas in front of you. I asked him a very simple question. I had my chart. I showed him that obviously the border was largely secure under Trump. Combined with Title 42, we just weren't letting many people into this country until the Biden administration used the same presidential authority, opened it up. So that's undeniable. And the question I asked him is, why did you do it? Why do you, President Biden, Democrats in Congress, why do you want an open border? I mean, it's such a clear and present danger. It's so dangerous for this nation to let Venezuela send their prisoners, the people from their mental institutions, these gangs that are unbelievably brutal and dangerous. I mean, we held a hearing when I was chairman of Homeland Security, the MS-13 gang. I thought it was by and large drug related. I'm sure they get involved in drugs, but it's mainly it's taking the place of family, and the hazing or the entry, what they have to do to enter the gang is just unbelievably brutal. I don't even want to tell you some of the things they do to other human beings. Just be a member of this brutal gang. So we're letting people like that into this country. We're going to be dealing with them for years, if not decades to come. So that's why I keep referring to this as a catastrophe. And that's actually understating the extent of the problem here.
I know that your faith is very strong, sir. It seems like we really have to turn to that, knowing that, we serve a great God and trust him with this, because man has really messed this up. I mean, this is terrible. And no matter what happens coming up here in your next election, and we do pray that it goes the right way, and I'm believing that it will, but it'll still be chaos. And I'm wondering what you think, as we sort of thank you for your time. And as we close, what do you think, sir, about how we fix all of this, and what is the answer to it?
Well, in a macro sense, I say the solution is renewed faith, stronger families, supportive communities. Again, easy to say, but difficult to pull off. I mean, I realize I am who I am because I was fortunate enough to have two parents who loved me of deep faith. And so that just instilled in me the basic ethics, the understanding of good and evil, and the desire to do good. And so if every child in the world could just make that statement, that they were fortunate enough to have two parents of deep faith, parents that love them, the world would be so much better place. But unfortunately, here in America, we engaged in a war on poverty when out-of-wedlock birth rates were well under 10%. Now nationally, out-of-wedlock birth rates are over 40%. Now, there are a number of reasons for that, but our welfare state didn't help that. We have programs that don't allow a father to be present in the home in order to get certain welfare benefits. So we have to take a look at what public policy does in terms of the destruction of the foundational building block of any successful society, which is the family. But again, it starts with renewed faith. It starts in an acknowledgement that there is a creator. And listen, it's still a mystery to me. I mean, I'll never explain it all. To me, faith is just peace. I'm at peace with who I am, and that whatever comes after life here, it'll be good. Okay. And you mentioned Eric Metaxas. Anybody who have questions about this, he wrote a great book. Is atheism dead? And it's talking about the fine-tuning of the universe. I have no idea how anybody could ever be an atheist. When you take a look at creation, that's really where I find my peace. Looking at the night sky, just pondering the wonder of the universe. How can you not acknowledge at least the possibility of a creator? I mean, how can you be so certain that there's no God? What created this? So again, it's mysterious. It is way beyond our human comprehension. I accept that fact, and I'm at peace with it. But again, it's that faith. It's in making yourself subservient to the fact that there's a creator, that there's a higher power, that there is good, there is evil, and you want to do everything you can be on the good side of the ledger.
Do you marvel just a bit at, obviously God chooses people to have an assignment in this lifetime, and your assignment is one of the most prominent and most vocal. You're right there where decisions at the heart of the greatest nation on earth, which is America, and I would say that this standing cannot be lost, but you're right there at this epic hour. Are you ever somewhat taken back by that?
A lot of people say, God put me in this place. And let's face it, God put us all in these places, okay? I have to admit, I mean, my life has just taken such unusual turns. I've always been willing to walk through an open door. And so doors have opened up for me. I've walked in. I've said yes. It's put me in an unusual position. I'm trying to use my position for good. I'm trying to use my position for exposing and revealing the truth. Because again, to me, that is the higher value. It's often difficult to discern. We're not always right. You have to have the humility to realize that there's so much we don't understand, the humility to understand that sometimes you're wrong and admit when you're wrong. But if you pursue the truth, if you understand that's the higher value, I think that's the role we all can play. It's the role I try and play. It's just try and understand what the truth is and then fiercely try and expose it and convey it.
I have one final question. I don't understand how any Christians can vote for the Democrat Party because of their positions that are so anti-God on everything. And yet all through the United States, and maybe this is changing, but large churches, especially African-American churches or, different ones have been they have aligned themselves with the Democratic Party, which it's so confusing, because it's really the Republicans that actually brought the end of slavery and all of that. But it's not just about the African-American population, but so many Democrats who call themselves Christian, and in their face, they're just allowing these abortions and potentially to kill a child after being born in California. And yet you'll have Christians align themselves with this. The deception is so deep. Do you have any explanation for what they're thinking?
Well, you use the right word, deception. The radical left will never be honest with the public in terms of what their ideology is, what their true goals and aims are. I mean, that's, again, Satan is always going to be deceptive. So it's all about deception. And unfortunately, we've got radical leftists controlling our news media. So they're not going to be honest. They're going to cover for the Democrat politicians. So again, it's simply that most of the public, or so many members of the public, they listen to the mainstream media. They understand the soothing words. For example, liberal. I mean, true liberalism is not what liberals are. Liberals is all about freedom and individual rights. It's not about growing government. It's not about taking control of people's lives. And yet they've hijacked that term, that wonderful term, liberalism, and applied it to themselves. So they're masking who they truly are. They are deceiving. And that's what we're up against. It's not a fair fight. It's not a level playing field. And I don't think, even biblically, anybody expected it to be. But we all have, in the end, we have to believe that good will conquer evil. And that's where that's why I say we've got to do everything we can to be on the good side of the ledger.
Well, I just want you to know that when we watch you and we watch your passionate stand for what is good and right, and we watch you doing what you're doing, we are applauding you from the sidelines. And it has just been so exciting to see somebody speaking the truth unabashedly, without shame, calling out evil. And there's only a few of you doing it. And I honor yourself and Senator Cruz, others who dare to speak, Rand Paul, those that will just put everything, put their egos, put their reputations, everything to go like full force to fight the evil, because it feels like it is an epic battle. And you, sir, are one of the generals in that, and we honor you. Thank you. I hope that the backlash does not tire you. I hope that you're not taken down by those that, go against you. I hope it's not too hard on you with your family. That you're able to withstand this. I'm sure it's the fight of your life. And I appreciate you so much. And I want to honor you today and just say that we're watching. We pray that you continue in everything that you're doing. And we thank you because, not very many of us are put in the position that you can head on tackle evil. And you're put in that position. And we thank God for you.
Well, listen, I appreciate those kind words. Definitely appreciate the prayers. We feel those. We really do. And I think those lift us up. But, in the end, I know who I am. I'm not deterred. I'm pretty tenacious. And again, I think when you just are dedicated to the truth, to doing good, that's provides an awful lot of comfort as well. So again, appreciate those prayers. Nobody has to feel sorry for me. I'm doing what I want to do, and I'm doing everything I can do.
I like that. I like that. We don't have to feel sorry for you, because once in a while we look at those that are on the front line and we go, holy smokes, I'm glad it's you and not me. But on the other hand, I'm at the front of the battle in my own way too. And I understand that tenacity. Sir, thank you very much. God bless you. We are going to pray for you. We ask everyone that's listening right now to please pray for Senator Ron Johnson and for his family and for those that are fighting the good fight. We don't know where we'd be without you. God bless you. Thank you for joining us today.
God bless you and all your listeners.
Thank you. Thank you. Wow. Well, this will go down as one of my best days. Let me tell you that I would get to interview such an incredible person as him. Sometimes people have, faith in the background, but they don't necessarily speak on it. They're not even comfortable sharing about that faith that they have in Jesus, that faith that gets them through, the darkest hours. But obviously the call, the gift and the call, the Word of God says that it brings us before great men. Our calling brings us before great men. And Senator Ron Johnson has to bring his gift and his fight before the greatest men on the planet. He is fighting for this incredible country. And I do love the United States of America, even as a Canadian, because I grew up mostly here in Canada, but my dad would, because he was American, he taught me about American culture and he taught me to love America. And I think that we're in just such a battle, watching what's going on with these borders, watching the cultural war. Remember back 2015, some of you remember my stand from way back then, and we began to see the fall of the culture. We began to see what was shocking to us. I thought we were being punked when I heard that one teacher in British Columbia was teaching kids that they could be transgender. I was like, there's a crazy person teaching kids stuff. This is ridiculous. We're going to shut this down right now. Only to find out it wasn't just one teacher. It was all through our province. And then it was in Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec. It was in all of the provinces. And then we found out it was in New Zealand, Australia, the UK, the United States of America. People were teaching this crazy thing. And you were like, what? None of it made sense. To a mind that is sound, this doesn't make sense. But they're willing to protest for it. They're willing to teach your children behind your back. They're willing to try to sever your relationship as a parent with your children to teach kids this. And there are very few that find themselves on the front lines of bringing sanity, holding on to sanity for the nations. There are very, very few who can do that. And one of those incredible people is Senator Ron Johnson. So we're going to let you go early today, everyone. I'm so glad I could have my coffee. We know that there's a battle royal. And for those of you that have followed with us, JT and I decided some time back that no holds barred. We're fighting this as hard as we can. We're fighting it out loud. We're going to talk about the things that the mainstream media will not talk about. We're going to bring to light evil. We're going to expose the wicked ways, the wicked, evil darkness that lurks behind shiny, bright faces that pretend that they're on the right side of everything. And, I look at people like AOC down there in the United States of America, just a radical. The other day, she was out there, she was holding, President Biden's hand. And here's two people committed to absolute darkness and pure evil. And it's absolutely shocking. What do? We stand strong. We pray. We know the end of the book. And, in Amos, it says that in the last days, and I think we're in the last days. I don't know if that still means we got 100 years or 10. Or 2, I don't know. Nobody knows the day or the hour. But in the last days, the mountain of the Lord will be exalted above the other mountains. So above the education mountain, above the media mountain, above the lying, deceptive, snakes and scorpions, the mountain of the Lord will be exalted at the end of time. And that's what I'm standing on. That as we speak, as we have the courage to speak, and many of you out there, and I hear from you, and I just want to thank April again too for supporting our work here. But many of you have stood in the streets, and I know April from the streets, and I just love her to death. One time, she's so sweet. She just sent us a little help. I'm going to Switzerland to fight that epic. The WHO thinks that we need a pandemic treaty so that we all bow and comply to them yet again. Not going to happen. I didn't do it the first time, and I'm not doing it again. But we were at a protest downtown Vancouver, and this incredible lady, April, my car, I had pulled up to the protest. It was so hard to get parking, and everything was so far away. And I pulled up just sort of in a little zone where you could have a bit of time to park, but you couldn't stay there for very long. Then I got distracted. Oh, like when will that happen? So I got distracted. I was doing all these things, and then a tow truck shows up to tow my vehicle. Well, this lady, she stood in the gap in between the tow truck and my vehicle, and she would not get off my car. So he couldn't tow my vehicle, and she saved me that day, and I just love her. But it's such an example of, are we willing to stand in the gap? Are we willing to get out of our comfort zones and do what we need to do? Recently, somebody had a Jesus a march, downtown, like, let's march for Jesus. And I loved the idea, except I didn't even know about it until like 2 days before. And I'm thinking, well, what kind of promo is that? And then your days are full and you can't make it down, and you're like, you're doing a Jesus march, and I didn't know, and a lot of people didn't know. The other side of it is, if we did know there was a Jesus march, if we even knew 2 months in advance, would we be the type that would actually be down there? Would we be doing that? I don't know. I don't think that we're at the place where the amount of pain has made us realize, like probably Senator Ron Johnson does realize, because he's in the thick of it. He's seeing the demise of this great country of America. Some people, it's right in their face. For many of us, it's not in our face yet. It's just, we know there's a little scuffle over here. Every time that I drive down and I go to a restaurant with my husband or go to a coffee shop, every time I can just go into a mall and get, some things I need, and life seems normal. I'm just driving down the street. Everything seems okay. I think about how the deception that all is running as it should, so it gives you the impression that nothing's wrong, when all the while it's like in a day. Do you remember when everything changed in a day because of COVID? But in a day, things can change, maybe because of a war, maybe because things blow up. We're watching these events with the anti-Semitism that is just rampant. It was always there, but this has exposed it. And the greatest exposure is coming as I see fellow Canadians with anti-Semitism in their spirit, not understanding the gravity of all of that. And when I see my Muslim Canadian friends extremely confused and calling Israel that they're the liars, they're the haters, and saying that, they bomb hospitals and they lie all the time. It's such a bunch of nonsense, when in actual fact, it's these perpetrators on the other side. It's the Palestinian terrorists, the Hamas and Hezbollah. And when I find people in my own country cannot recognize evil, it makes me understand that something is being revealed that we hoped wasn't there. I truly hoped that those that understood freedom and our way of life, like, because Canada was founded on Judeo-Christian values, and it was. It's been a Christian nation. Some would now maybe say it's a post-Christian nation. Well, that will be the fall of it. But because of freedom, Tucker Carlson, I alluded to this interview that he just did, but the gentleman basically says that Christianity is very libertarian. It's like, well, choose you this day whom you will serve. You choose. You get to have the will. What do you feel like? Do you want to serve God or mammon? Do you want to serve, what is righteous? You know, when that scripture that I read from my dad's Bible at the top of the show says, judge me, Lord, according to my integrity. Do you have the guts to say that to God today? Judge me according to my integrity, according to the righteousness of my heart. Do you want to be judged by God? I live in a certain fear that I know the Lord does judge us and the Lord disciplines us. But this is the dispensation of grace. His mercy is here. This is the season of grace. This is just a season, though, because one day it's going to turn to be not just the season of grace, but actually the season of judgment, to judge what you did with all the freedom. When you had freedom, what did you do with that freedom? And what we're finding is that those that do not know their God are taking freedom and pushing it to an extreme where they think that they can tell your children how it's going to be. And they think that they, possibly these hate speeches coming into play in Canada are going to be judgment on you for believing what is right and true. Isn't that weird? When you believe what's right and when you act in righteousness, hate speech can now tell you that that's wrong. And the Word of God said that there will come a day when what's right is wrong and wrong is right. And I think we're getting there. And that's why we stand up, and that's why we speak every day. And good folks like yourself and wonderful April and precious people that say that they want to help us to do this. We appreciate every one of you. I've written to a couple of you in the last few days, and I want you to know how much you mean to us. It means the world that we're not by ourselves. When JT and I decided that we were going to have to go full force on this, it meant a sacrifice. It meant not pursuing other things. We found that, for me in particular, when you get nationally called out and there's papers that call you like a transphobe and a bigot and all of that, it's really hard to get a job, if you know what I mean. Some of you have experienced that if you've been vocal enough to say there's something wrong with what's being said right now. But all things work together for good to those who are called according to his purposes. And that's true in your life as well. And I hope that if you're feeling this, the beginning of this fight that we're in, if you're feeling the weight of it, that's because God's calling you to that place to feel that weight. Because there's no doubt about it that some people will not feel the weight. They will just, you remember in Noah's day, everybody was eating, drinking, and being merry until, boom, judgment, until the rain came, until the storm came, and there was no way out of it. A lot of people will not understand the gravity of this fight. A lot of your family members will never understand the gravity of this fight. Some of your friends who you thought for sure would understand the seasons and the times that we are in, they will not understand this gravity. They will not understand the fight. So it's up to us. If we feel it, if we're willing to speak, without embarrassment. We are not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ, for it is the power and it is the life. It is the lifeblood of our nation, of our lives, of our very lives. And we must fight for all we're worth. We must speak Maybe for you, it means just increasing speaking in your location where you work, saying a few things. How hard is it to say, yeah, I just don't, I'm just not down with that whole transgender thing. Yeah, I just don't, believe it. And then just take a sip of your coffee, look over the other way, and say, hey, see you here again tomorrow for lunch, guys. Take care. You don't have to have a big fight. You just have to put it out there, because guaranteed, you got a good percentage of that room totally in line with you, but they're too afraid to say it. And they're grateful that you will say it. And that's the fight. Speaking with your mouth, words of life, words of truth, words of hope. So many of us have had a problem. I want to just let you know that we're letting you know you can get Ivermectin and Hydroxychloroquine from Mia. And if you have that handy there, JT, I can't quite remember the email, but somebody was trying it as well, and they thought, oh, they had to go to a website, and it's not like that. So Mia's got some Ivermectin and Hydroxychloroquine, and you can order it. You can get this stuff for free at tons of, all over Mexico, you can buy it for free. All over Costa Rica, you can buy it for free. I bet you can get it for free in El Salvador. I love El Salvador these days. That great president there is just epic. I love him. I hope you saw his clip the other day. He's just off the charts. We need a president like that in every country in the world. And so I appreciate him. But if you need to get some Ivermectin so that, your family's okay. And I believe in Ivermectin because when I took it in Costa Rica, I've never had to go back on that medication that I was on for lupus, which is actually hydroxychloroquine. So very interesting. They're saying that we're all full of parasites in our body and that parasites are causing cancer. And we have some things that just get rid of parasites. Ivermectin is one of those things. So I don't see why our government is so crazy. I really don't. Also, we encourage you not to keep your funds in the bank. Don't keep large parts of cash. Sorry about the background. My dog's having a coughing fit here. But don't just keep your cash when it devalues. And we should have asked Senator Ron Johnson about that, JT? Can y'all stop? Can y'all stop printing money? Of course, it's not his fault at all. He's not in charge of that. But look what's happening. They print funds, and one day you got to pay the piper. So silver and gold, we believe in that. And you can contact Steve Merrill at sovereignize. I want to leave you today. I wonder if any of you have made a vow to God at some point in your life and you're not really walking in that right now. I feel this is a holy day. To have somebody on as incredible as Senator Ron Johnson and to downplay or underplay the power of our destinies in this life and the power of our words and how much that matters. The reason that we're here is because JT and I believe our words matter. And some of you have maybe not revisited the love of your youth, the power of the relationship you once had with God, and it's grown cold. Now, God would rather that you were cold than lukewarm, but he'd prefer that you were hot on fire for him. And I wonder if this is a day when you would consider actually turning towards him and actually coming back to that place where maybe you once told him he was important. So this is what it says in Matthew 5, and this is the Sermon on the Mount where Jesus was preaching a very long sermon, I might say. But in verse 33, it says, "Again, you have heard that it was said to the people long ago, 'Do not break your oath, but fulfill to the Lord the vows you have made.' But I tell you, do not swear an oath at all, either by heaven, for it is God's throne, or by earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great King. And do not swear by your head, for you cannot make even one hair white or black. All you need to say is simply yes or no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one. Isn't that amazing? Don't go around making promises that you can't keep, but maybe today just say yes. If you don't just say yes, in a way you're saying no. If you do not embrace God, perhaps you're actually rejecting him. Just say yes. God doesn't want you to, make all these promises. Have you ever made a promise when something was like happening so bad and you're like, God, I promise if you get me out of this, if you just fix this, I'm going to serve you for the rest of my life. I'm going to become a missionary to Africa. If you just fix this for me, Lord. Of course, he fixes it. Most times he fixes it. And then a few years later, we remember, I haven't really quite lived up to all of that. Well, the Word of God is basically saying, don't make these promises. Just say yes to him. He's such a gracious and a kind God. He's so very loving and long-suffering with us that he will, in this season of the grace of God, he will put up with us. But what he most wants is that relationship. What he most wants is that you would receive him and walk with him in integrity and in righteousness. What he most wants is that you would say yes to him today. God bless. It's not easy to deliver the truth of what our sick world is doing, but for some of us, we feel that we have no choice. Because if we are silent about these abominable things, then we are letting evil go unchecked, and we cannot do that. For those of you wonderful people who are writing me and are sharing your encouragement, I am deeply grateful. Thank you for all the letters that you've been sending. Thank you for the donations and the support. I found out that in order to speak the truth, you have to become very, very strong. If you would go to my website at www.laura-lynn.tv, you'll find all of the ways that you can contact me. Remember, my friends, all is well. All is well. Thanks for joining me.